Hello everyone. I've gotten some requests to give a good hard look at the contents of the Cabinet of Awesomeness. I believe I've done this once before, but it's in a constant state of flux. I'm art directing it constantly and all that, so I'll just give you a current state. Um, and so let's get started. First of all, just as an overview, this cabinet, we got it along with a new dining room table from a family who lives nearby. We picked it up, I think it was off Craigslist. The lamp inside was shot, so we rewired it, and then it was still not great, so I improved the whole thing by putting in a big bar of RGB LEDs. So this thing can be different colors, but it's usually just brightly lit. But let's get to the good stuff. First up, beautiful, right? These are custom figurines by 7-Star. That's Viistar. She is a spectacular illustrator and sculptor. This one here is Miranda, the star of the Book of Deacons series. She is probably the most important character that I have created, although maybe not the most popular. We'll get into that later, I guess. I'll have to do a poll or something. Right next to her, that is the newest figurine. That is Turiel from the Decaran Apprentice, which is book 4 of the Book of Deacon series. She is a necromancer, and right next to her there is her familiar Mott. Mott is mixed and matched. He's made out of pieces from a dragon, a spider, a vulture, a snake, a jackal, etc., etc. Whatever she could find. He's also got, you can't see them because his eyes are closed, but he's got green eyes, which are actually a plot point in the book. He's also an illustration of no matter how horrific something is, if you make it affectionate, people will consider it cute. That's an ongoing thing in my books. And right next to them, that's Deacon, the in-canon author of the Book of Deacon, which means that book that's writing itself in his hand there is the actual Book of Deacon. So that's, meta. Moving on. Frame 2. Did you know for a while that I was seriously considering doing a run of stuffed animals based on the cuter characters in my stories? I was. My popularity waned, before I could figure out a good balance of cost and quality, but I still ended up with some awesome prototypes, and these are they. They're all done by Bubble Rhapsody Designs. Links, by the way, for all of these things are going to be in the description on YouTube. So, what do we have? This in the back is Solby. He is a Funk, which is a fox-skunk hybrid from my Big Sigma series. Over here is Min in high detail. Glass eyes. This is the one that I don't like it when people take it out of the case because I'm afraid those eyes are going to come flying out. The thing around her neck we'll talk about later. Next to her is Min again. This one is the mass production friendly one with embroidered eyes instead of glass and at a smaller size. Came close to doing a run on this one. I was getting price quotes. Might kickstart something like that someday. I don't know though. I don't really have a ravenous fan base for toys, I don't think. Next to her, that is Derpy Min. That's a design that Bubble Rhapsody specializes in. It's simplified and small and reasonably cheap. Somewhere behind the Min trio, there's also a Derpy Solby, but he has fallen down. Moving on. Okay. This strapping young fellow in the back here, this is Jimmy DeResta. He is a YouTube maker that I really enjoy. Watch his stuff. He builds things. Down here is his cat, Spike. This cutie plush here, not a plush intended for mass production. This was created by an artist who goes by RoboShark. I don't believe he makes plush anymore. So this is a particularly limited edition. Moving on. This is a wooden SNES cartridge that I made with my laser cutter. I have a Glowforge, if you've heard of them. Or even if you haven't, I still have one. This die and these coins are from a company called Campaign Coins. I'm actually working with them to maybe make a fun bit of merch, but communication is broken down a little bit. I have to see if I have the wrong email. But whatever. Working on that. This cow is part of a run of figures based on some fancy artist cows that showed up around the country a few years ago. I think it was called Cow Parade. These white things are failed 3D prints from my 3D printer. I have one of those too. They don't really have any meaning or value. I just threw them there. Over here is a brass die set. I don't remember who I got them from. I got them in Boston at Penny Arcade East. Penny Arcade Expo East. But that's it for this shelf. Moving on. Okay, lots of stuff here. Where to start? Down here in the front, it's one of the first things I ever had 3D printed. It's got the first version of the Mark of the Chosen on it, and was printed by Shapeways. You'll hear about Shapeways a lot. They're a 3D printing service. If you don't have a 3D printer, or if you want something printed really, really nice, Shapeways. The skull back there, printed on my very first 3D printer. I've had several. Big clay die. It was a project I made in Talented Art back in, I think, 5th grade. I don't know that I belonged in Talented Art, but they let me in, it turns out, because I was creative. I was terrible at art, but good at making up art things. And so they let me in. Did you know that opposite faces on a D6 like that are supposed to add up to 7? I know that now. I didn't know it then, so the faces are all wrong. Also, I thought I was glazing with white, and it turned out to be some kind of weird ivory color. I don't know. On top of that are some miniatures. I painted at Penny Arcade Expo East a few years earlier than the other thing. The dwarf was painted by me. The rogue, I guess, it was painted by my friend Carrie. He told me to keep it because he didn't have any place to put it. Says something, I suppose, about the amount of space in his house if he can't have a miniature anywhere. Moving on. Next to them are 2 test prints of the Squee and Solby figurines. These are more funks from Big Sigma. They were created by Liz Landis. One of them was printed on my home 3D printer. The other one was printed by Shapeways. What else we got? Moving forward, we've got a Star Trek Next Generation era comm badge, 3D printed on my own 3D printer. Next to it is a whistle, also 3D printed. It works, by the way. Okay, pendants. These pendants are printed in plastic, one on my 3D printer, one by Shapeways. These are printed in stainless steel with coatings. There's gold, nickel, and bronze. They do cool stuff at Shapeways. These are dice rings from a company called Crit Success. Basically, you spin one like a D20 on your finger, and the other one is a life counter. This is a quarter for scale. Here's a gold-plated steel ring, also by Shapeways. Like the pendants, it's got the version 2 of the Mark, which is the most merch-worthy symbol I've got. This is a Min pendant, printed on my 3D printer. This one's printed out of bronzed steel by Shapeways, also designed by Liz Landis. This is a hologram illusion, which is darn convincing at the right angle. It is not at the right angle. And the illusory item inside of it is an old version of the Mark of the Chosen pendant. This is an old clip I used for hanging my headphones. This is an ambiguous shape. See how the reflection is kind of round and the not reflection is kind of square? From the right angle, incidentally the same right angle as the illusion, it looks perfectly round and perfectly square. So fancy. Finally, we've got some full-color prints of Solby and Squee, also designed by Liz Landis, also printed by Shapeways. You can actually buy these. I think I have a link to the store down there. Oh, I almost forgot. This here is a 3D print of a Stabby Award. I have exactly one book that has won an award. I was a contributor to a thing called Blackguards, or Blaggards, and it won a Stabby Award from Reddit Fantasy, and only the person who made the book got the award, so I 3D printed one. It's right here. Next. Solby and Squee again. Up here is Liz Landis design. It's Min this time. I don't know if you can actually buy these because those wings make them a very unreliable print. Down there is a prototype of Min, and tucked behind is another, even more prototype that I printed at home. Here's a sculpt of Squee by Lelia's Clay Creations. I believe she stopped taking commissions, but she still has an Etsy store, I think. Down here in the front is a Min and an Ivy that a fan made of mine in Chile. Both are characters from Book of Deacon. This big one here in the middle is Halifax. He has a major role in a very minor book called Jade, which is a Book of Deacon story. He also has a major role in the fabled Lost Book of the Book of Deacon series that's an unreleased story currently called The Untitled Sequel Trilogy Book 1. Maybe someday you'll get to read that, not anytime soon. It was made by Emily Sculpts. Next. Another good shelf. This is Ivy from the Book of Deacon by 7 Star. If you twisted my arm, I'd say she's my favorite figurine. Next is Ether, Book of Deacon character, also by 7 Star. This is Amanita Grouse. She's from my Freerun series, and you guessed it, another 7 Star. This is Lane from the Book of Deacon, and Min from the Book of Deacon, both by Lelia Clay. Moving on. We're getting into the souvenir shelves, which means too much stuff to mention. Let's see. You can see some Castle Crasher stuff. There's a box of smoked salmon from a fan in Seattle. You know, you could freeze frame this and check it out. Ask me about stuff, I guess. Next, more fan and souvenir stuff. There's a Taubeta pie thing from college. There's a limited edition Tom Serve Crow from MST3K, some pins from Naomi Romero, and a Nito etched NES controller. And finally, we have the least interesting stuff. Green Derby. It's an actual leather Green Derby I picked up. There's a mocked up supplement to the lighting that I haven't installed yet. There's a clay orange that I made in school. And my really good goggles. Also a Godfather mug, because I'm a godfather to my nephew Vince. And that's it. So, that's the current state of the cabinet of awesomeness. If I skimmed over something, let me know. I'm happy to do a follow-up with greater detail. Until then, have a great day.